loyal listeners, and welcome to our podcast. This is your host, Macy. With us today, we have occupational therapy students, Erica, Emily, Kaz, and Abby from Touro University. Picture this. You have been studying for hours on end and finally finish your third pass on the hypothalamus. What is the first thing you do? Most students turn to social media, but there may be more to our social media usage that could be affecting our eating habits. That's what we are here today to talk about. So Kaz, explain to me a little bit about your project.
Thanks for that introduction, Macy. The overall purpose of our project was to investigate how social media use contributes to disordered eating among health graduate students. We hypothesized that social media usage led to an increased likelihood of disordered eating habits among health graduate students.
Disordered eating, is that the same as eating disorders?
Actually, you bring up a really good point. So this gives me an opportunity to clarify on some definitions. Disordered eating patterns are consistent and persistent disturbances of eating and eating-related behaviors that then result in altered consumptions or absorptions of food that significantly impair physical health or psychological functioning. And so these have the potential to then lead into diagnosable eating disorders. So there is a big difference between the two. Really, disordered eating patterns or habits that we mentioned throughout the project can fall under other precursors of disordered eating. These include biological, psychological, interpersonal, and environmental factors. We'll discuss these factors, including high stress and social media, later on, and these are really prevalent among health graduate student lives, and how those actually play a role in their eating behaviors. Previous research focuses on undergraduate level students, but our project highlights the graduate student population.
Wow, that is very interesting. As a graduate student myself, I would like to know more. How did you all go about getting your information for your project?
That's a great question, Macy. Well, to investigate the impact of social media use on health graduate students, eating habits, and how this can lead to disordered eating, we use an explanatory mixed method design. With this, we use a descriptive approach to collect our quantitative data, followed by a phenomenological approach to collect qualitative data.
Explanatory design? Descriptive approach? Phenomenological? What do these words mean?
Let me further explain. An explanatory mixed method design gathers quantitative data, which then influences the qualitative data that we use to gather our conclusions. Using a descriptive approach, we were able to reduce the large amount of data gathered on our questionnaires without losing critical information. It is also referred to as data reduction. With this approach, it allows our findings to be more digestible. By using a phenomenological approach, our qualitative data, we gathered information by diving into our participants' personal experiences with social media use and disordered eating within our interview process.
I would like to hear you say phenomenological 5 times. Where did you find the participants for your project?
Well, actually, we found our amazing participants conveniently through our cohort at Touro University, Nevada.
How convenient. How many graduate students were included in your project?
In total, we included 28 participants from the cohort for our quantitative surveys. Based on exclusion criteria, we had to exclude 3 members for the quantitative portion, and 2 others were excluded because they did not complete the survey. For our qualitative research, since the aim of a phenomenological study is to gain a deep understanding, we only interviewed 4 randomly selected participants.
That sounds like a lot of work. What did your research process look like?
For our quantitative data, we conducted in-person surveys with questions derived from the EAT3 survey, specifically asking about social media use and eating habits. The majority of our questions were formatted on a 5-point Likert scale. We used a number generator to assign a 4-number code to each participant to allow their quantitative responses to be linked with in-person interviews. Our data was compiled and analyzed as a summary of percentages reflecting social media use and disordered eating across our sample, and we used the statistics from our survey data to guide our semi-structured qualitative portion. Abby, do you want to discuss the qualitative portion?
I'd love to. So for the qualitative portion of this project, we included 23 participants which were chosen based on their response to a question on the quantitative survey, indicating that they were willing to participate in the in-person interviews. Consenting participants were all added into a random number generator using their identification numbers in order to conceal their identity. And 4 participants were randomly chosen to participate in one-on-one, in-person, semi-structured interviews with the student researcher. The interviews consisted of both open-ended and closed-ended questions designed to elaborate on survey responses in order to gain a more comprehensive exploration and understanding of the participants' experience. We also allowed for probing of participants in order to further reveal any underlying information regarding the behaviors and experiences of social media use in relation to disordered eating habits. And we actively observed the participants during the interviews for any nonverbal cues worth noting that may further indicate their true experiences. These interviews were audio recorded and fully transcribed by the interviewer. We also conducted member checking in order to ensure the participants' perspectives were communicated clearly and accurately. In analyzing the interviews, we found certain commonalities among participants, and these commonalities led us to develop themes. We then conducted peer debriefing amongst each other as the student researchers in order to confirm that we were all in agreement with the most prevalent themes.
That's cool that one type of research can influence the other. I always have enjoyed reading research, but I've never realized all that goes into it. So at the end of the day, what did you guys find?
We found the relationship between social media behaviors and eating habits show a low positive correlation as well as a negligible correlation between increased levels of stress and negative social media behaviors. Interestingly enough, 52% of the population surveyed agree that they have feelings of body dysfunction that arise due to social media use, showing us that there's a real problem here.
We also uncovered 3 common themes within our qualitative research. These themes further guide the understanding of human experience based on common findings. First off, we found that social media really does influence eating habits and food choice, however differently than we first thought. Through interviews, we found that our population often resorted to social media to find recipes or base their meals on what they recently came across during their latest social media scroll through.
For our second thing, we found that social media is used to keep in touch with friends and family. This was common among all of our participants, regardless of social media platforms they were using. Our third thing was that body image thoughts were present after using social media. However, our qualitative participants mentioned that they thought about their body image after going on social media, but the responses were gender specific. So females had negative thoughts about their body image, but males were neutral.
So just to make sure I'm understanding your guys' project, this project showed preliminary results of the negative effects of social media use on disordered eating habits. However, further projects should be conducted to allow for better conclusions to be drawn.
Yeah, that's right, Macy. Thanks so much for allowing us to share our findings.
All right, thanks guys. Thank you for joining me today. Next week we will be discussing the effects of me time. See you all later.